It's a very good morning. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenzelen Devele and this is the Breakfast Club. Once in a while or almost every week, we bring you interviews with former members of the ZPRA. These could be people who were soldiers, people who were in the intelligence, people who were leaders, to try and understand the history, because over the years a lot has been said. Some of the stories are not true, some are true, but also you realize that it is very difficult to get books and that talk a lot about the history of ZPRA. Therefore, a lot of young people don't really know much about ZPRA. But the role or the duty of telling these stories is a very difficult one, because this is almost like 40 years or so, 42 years or 43 years after independence, and the narratives change. Everyone becomes a hero, and many stories, get to be told in different ways. So it is always important that we talk to different people to find out what happened, to try and understand from all angles, and the balancing act is not easy. One of the organizations that were very active in ZPRA was the National Security Order, known as NSO. There have been so many stories and so many controversies around the NSO. Some people in ZPRA accuse them as the people who, disturbed the struggle. Others say they spied on them. And there are so many things that have been said about the NSO. And in the last weeks, we have been trying to talk to NSO members to understand their role, how they saw themselves, and their response to some of these allegations. And today in the program, we'll be talking to Zephania Moyo. Some know him as Jaconia. That was his name that he used in the liberation struggle. He was part of the NSO. And the interesting history about Moyo is that before he joined the liberation struggle, he had served as a police officer in the Rhodesian police. So he joined not just as a recruit, but someone who was already been trained. So how was he viewed by some of the ZPRA guys? Was he seen as a spy? What was his relationship with ZPRA leadership and the ZPRA commanders? He's going to tell his story.
I was detained. I didn't know why I was detained, but they actually said, okay, we'll detain you because tomorrow we'll ask the people responsible for the recruitment to come and talk to you. I said, okay. They detained me. In the cells, I met Mr. Dube, I forgot his name, and the other guy was in Lovo. Lovo came from Bambat. I spent the night there. The following day, the two senior ZPRA senior officers came. One of them was my son Love, and Makepes, I can't remember what the one was called Chuma. I was taken to about 15 kilometers north of Francistown. I think if you go through Francistown on your left side, you could see some boosters, signals. Yeah. There was a special branch, office there. That's where I was taken. Actually, I spent the whole day. They were interrogating me, but they were really tough, but they never actually harassed me or beat me. And I was taken back to the cells. The following day, I spent the night in the cells. The following day again, they came and they took me into an office. The interrogation continued. I'm not sure whether they did communicate with the director of intelligence in ZAPU, Comrade Dabengwa. because Comrade Dabengwa was in my file at Mbembesi, or he was in the Mbembesi file, Mbembesi police file. I knew him, all the details about him. There was a lot of information about him, the relatives and whatnot. His father, that they bought a farm in Kwatemba. So I think they contacted Dabenga. Then Dabenga said, we would like to see this man. So the third day, I was blindfolded, put on a truck, and taken to the airport in Francistown. And then with others, we boarded, this Red Cross plane, which was taking refugees from Francistown to Lusaka. From Lusaka, we were driven to Nampundu. I thought at that time, okay, I've already joined the strike list, so most probably are going to a military academy to do further training and this and that. Little did I know that we were going into the bush. Got into the truck, which at least had the canvas at the back from the airport, to Lusaka city, and then we thought we're about to get into Lusaka, then straight, then Lusaka West. Then we could see the lights now behind, right into the bush, up until on the Mumba Road, up until we turned left, to Nampundu. While I was in Nampundu, there were a few guys. I later discovered that those were the guys who were trained in intelligence, but not in reconnaissance and military intelligence. But they were seconded, to. At that time, I think now the department was called the Public Relations Affairs Office, which was led by Dumiso himself. I spent a day in Nampundu. The next day, I was told that I was wanted in Lusaka. Some guys came, a vehicle came and picked me because they said Dabeng wanted to see me. I was taken to Zimbabwe House and waited for less than 15 minutes. I think they phoned him. Then Dabeng came. When he came, I'd never seen him, physical, but because I had seen him on the pictures, I could see him as he was coming, and I was seated down under a tree. So he came straight to me. They gave him a chair, and he says, "Are you the young man who is an ex-police officer?" I said, "Yes." Then he says, I think he started asking me why have I decided to join the strike and this and that and this and that. Then I gave him the reasons, and I gave him almost every bits up, which at least I thought as an intelligence officer would be interested in it. Then he says, "Okay, let's go to somewhere out of this head office, Zimbabwe House." We went to Chilenje. Then in Chilenje, we continued, making these discussions and so forth. He wasn't harsh. He wanted to know quite a lot, really. Then I realized that, he really wanted to understand the enemy's strength, because he had left in the early 60s, and I would say most of the people who had left at that time, They didn't know how the enemy operated. Then he said, no, it seems you have got the information which at least we want. So we'll give him enough time. We want you to make a breakdown of the army ranks and how they operate, because we were working at that time. From time to time, we used to close ranks. Then he says, okay, I will also want to understand the structure of the police, how they operate with their ranks. Then I gave everything in details. And so he wanted to know about the so-called Selous Scouts. And no, Selous Scouts is a highly sophisticated, group, security services, which at least fight behind the enemy zones. And some of the people who are in the Selous Scouts were captured, guerrillas. So they could even indicate the crossing points, both ZPRA and Zanlands. And then after having gone through all the ranks, all the details about, the army and the police, he says, okay, tomorrow you have to go back to Nampundu. Go and collect your belongings. I said, why is I have to collect my belongings? What has happened? I went and came back in the afternoon. That same afternoon, there was a group which was leaving for the Soviet Union. The first group which really specialized on intelligence training, both the civilian covering the security sector as well. So this group was led by Cde. We're about 29. Then the following morning, we were told that we were going to the Soviet Union. So we were taken to Lusaka airport. We boarded the Aeroflot to the Soviet, to Moscow. I kept on wondering why Dabengwa just decided to say, okay, join this organization. Whether he was saying I should join it for further training, I don't know. So we went to the Soviet Union. To me, the training, of course, it was almost like a refreshment, because most of the things I had done, training in security is just the same international. There are no new things. The only thing you could find there was using special gadgets, like these little communication radios and so forth and so forth. So we remained in the Soviet Union for about, I think about 9 months. We were taken into a secret college, which was sort of like an intelligence, college where it was set that we should complete our studies there. The first weeks we had to try and do a little bit of Russian language, because most of our lecturers, they didn't understand, English, but there were one or two who could speak the language. Our training really was very broad. It encompassed a lot of things like intelligence, counterintelligence, sabotage, engineering, how to conduct surveillance, and even how to do interrogations of suspected whatever, whether it's an enemy agent, propaganda, collecting and making analysis and dissemination, whatever. Cyber, well, even though some of the things we were not at that level, because some of the things needed some people who were supposed to have done A level, special forensics laboratories. Well, we did forensics. Even here, I did forensics as well, but at a lower level in the police. After our training, we were to go on holiday in Belarusia. I think the other reason they wanted us to visit, the grave of the great Soviet Union director Zinsky, where he was born. So we stayed in Minsk, and again we were introduced to a place where they used to have these small communist parties, the young people who were radicalized, who would actually do communism at a tender age. And there was a place here called Hatyn. This place is a place where the Germans actually invaded Russia, and they actually surrounded all the people in that sort of like a semi-village. It was sort of like a valley, and put the children in a church, and the other people were put in another small wall, and they were burnt alive. So there were those, graves, charred bodies put in glasses and so forth and so forth. We went through again to see how the cooperatives were run. This big, be one of the biggest, tractor plant in the world, in Belarus. They're making these open cast, tractors and so forth. So now, having completed our training, we're supposed to be returned back to Lusaka. We arrived in Lusaka. The following day, we were taken to a camp called Moscow, which was specially for the intelligence officers. So it was not far from Mbweshi and Cgt 1 and Cgt 2 to 3 up to 3. I remained there for about now a week. Again, I was recalled to Lusaka. On my arrival, there was a meeting which at least I did attend. This time around, it was the first time they established National Security Organization, NSO. And all the officers were supposed to lead, the departments were appointed on that day. where there was intelligence led by Victor Mlambo, and then counterintelligence by Gordon Buche, and then public security was led by Mvenge. Mvenge didn't do proper training. I was actually meant to be the person responsible because under this department there were a number of other departments which fell under it. So there was finance and administration where Swazini was responsible. And the military intelligence, MID, was removed from the army ZPRA and attached, to NSO, which again, I think that created a lot of problems for the department. The late Brigadier Mandu was appointed the director, deputized by Nepat Madida. He is now late. Both of them, they are late. Then Nefat Madlela was put on training. So he continued doing the training because we had another base in Kitwe where he had to continue training the members of NSO. So I would say that was the beginning again of my difficult time because I didn't understand why. I was still wondering why Dabengwa decided to put me in this department. And having discussed with a lot of people who had left earlier on, they would spend almost about a year or two in Francistown. But with me, leaving here to Soviet Union, the 8th day, I was landing in the Soviet Union with this other group. Now, where I realized it was going to be difficult for me, the Department of Public Security and Rehabilitation, it was responsible for the camps, refugees, where whenever there was any trouble, I was supposed to go there. Now, I was then told that there are people who were picked up on suspicion that they were enemy agents. And I was told that, you see, when I left the other group, the MI group wanted to arrest me and detain me, put me in those detention pits. But luckily, Dabengwa had already seconded me to this further training. So these guys, I was told they were not in Lusaka. They were in Mboroma. Mboroma is almost about 350 kilometers from Lusaka, further down Kabwe. The first time I went there, I was really, I couldn't believe that people could live under such, situation for a long time. They're staying in a pit, I think this size, almost about 10 to about 12 meters, covered with bunkers, sand. They spend most of their time underground. Then there was a fence around. There was security, which at least was responsible for guarding those people. After my visit, I went to Durban. I said, Durban, hey, what I saw.
So how many people were there?
They're close to about 430 or so.
All these were said to be sellouts.
Sellouts. Then I went to Durban and said, Durban, hey, what I saw there, I can't believe my eyes. There are two things which we can do. Either we kill those people and forget about them, because also they themselves, they don't know whether one day they'll be classified as human beings. So either we kill them because one, we have got personnel who are fitting them and so forth. For how long the struggle is going on? Alternatively, we have to try and vet them and find out whether for sure those people were being infiltrated or they were just suspects. I believe that, you see, the picking up of those people, it wasn't easy, because cases like highly trained people being infiltrated is not easy. You cannot pick. And when we are doing the investigation, you have to to take that person, lock him up, and do thorough investigation. When we are doing investigation, we have to start, from him going back up to his family background, his schooling and everything, his social behavior and so forth and so forth. But to meet a person in Nampundu, then you say he's a sellout. I said we can vet all those people, go through all the documentation, if ever is there anything tangible, whether they've got enough information or evidence or type of equipment which those people were caught with, or some sort of a map which at least had been plotted, whatever, anything to prove that those people were responsible. Then Tabenga said, no, you can, the second, proposal which you have made, that we should vet these people and see what we can do, whether we can train them and deploy them. I think it's a better proposal. So I was given, the green light. After a week, I returned. I drove straight, back to the camp. I spent the day going through some of the papers, even though they were not properly filed. But amongst all those papers I had gone through, within two days, there was not even one document which at least I could say this person most probably was nearer a person who has been actually recruited or whatever, trying to come and do sabotage. Because some of them were those people who came to Inela. And then once one was picked up, you'll be thoroughly beaten. And you will actually say, we came being 4, 5, 6, and those people will be taken and then taken to Morom. And some of the guys were those guys who were trained personnel, who were operating inside the country. And they were sent back by their commanders to go and get, supplies in the form of armament and so forth and so forth. There was a misunderstanding between those people who were fighters on the field and those people who were responsible for in the high command, because some of them, they'd never crossed the river, and never tested the fight with the enemy. So they couldn't understand why some people were coming back and say we need these type of weapons and so forth and so forth. That's why there was at a later stage, there was a problem between the guerrillas led by Usandla Nodube Mafuta, Andrew and Dabo Khwailahle, because it was because of the misunderstanding.
There was, I read a book by one guy, Churchill Guduza, who mentions such issues.
Yeah, Churchill Guduza is one of them, one of the guys who was actually detained. Churchill, it's difficult to. He was a clever guy, but sometimes he was very silly, very argumentative, and so forth and so forth. Mind you, the level of education also created a barrier, a problem, because some of the commanders were not, they'd not done even standard 6, but they were commanders, and some of the guys you see were secondary education up to about O level. So there was this, misunderstanding. And I understand Churchill because he was trying to, he was a bit stubborn. He didn't want to get some of the orders from any other leaders. Whether wrong or right, but Churchill, as I know him, he was very, very stubborn. I'll get to what happened to Churchill. So I did all the vettings, and a number of guys who were underground. I had to move them outside the perimeter fence, and all the logistics, medics, supplies, to hide them with the supplies, food supplies in the mountains, then the signals. Also, I moved them outside because I said this is a dangerous situation where the signals are inside the perimeter fence and so forth, and the food as well inside. I think I made about 4, 5, 6 trips. And I think whilst I had started, doing now I think it's around 79, doing all these vettings. The Smith regime had identified our camp. I think it was the Selu Scouts. So after their return, they took too long to attack. Otherwise, they were going to almost collect almost everyone who was there. Then the time they decided to attack the camp, because it was attacked the same day they attacked the Mkush. They had helicopters, there's troop carriers, the Dakotas. And they had enough fuel, which at least they'd put in the old Mkushi and Boroma land airstrip, which was used by the Zambians during those old days, I think during the Federation. But still, the aircraft could easily land.